Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, the 2024 campaign heats up as President Biden gives a major speech in the battleground state of Pennsylvania. And an incident in Nevada makes many question the safety inside courtrooms. We'll hear from some local judges to get their point of view.
And the forecast remains active for this weekend, timing out that cold rain as Mountain News at 5:30 starts now.
Dedicated to southern and eastern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. We begin tonight with breaking news from the U.S. Supreme Court. Justices will decide whether former President Donald Trump can be kept off the ballot because of his efforts to overturn his 2020 election loss. The justices acknowledged late today the need to reach a decision quickly as voters will soon begin casting presidential primary ballots across the country. The court agreed to take up the case from Colorado stemming from Trump's role in the events that culminated in the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. Arguments are expected to be held in early February. Well, President Biden visited Valley Forge and the headquarters that George Washington used in the Revolutionary War during a campaign stop in Pennsylvania this afternoon. It is his first campaign event of 2024, a year that could very well see him take on former President Trump again, with the winner getting the White House. CBS's Willie James Inman has more.
President Biden is ramping up his 2024 re-election campaign in the battleground state of Pennsylvania.
There's no confusion about who Trump is, what he intends to do.
The president used the event to mark the third anniversary since the January 6th assault on the U.S. Capitol, as he is anticipating a rematch with former President Donald Trump.
His first rally for the 2024 campaign opened with a choir of January 6th insurrectionists singing from prison.
Former President Trump's rivals for the GOP nomination are acknowledging the January 6th assault and say that becomes an advantage for Biden if he's in a rematch with Trump.
If Trump is the nominee, the election is going to be about legal issues, criminal trials, and January 6th. Biden's record, no one's even going to be talking about that. It's all going to be about Trump.
Republicans have lost the last 7 out of 8 popular votes for president. That is nothing to be proud of.
Trump, who still maintains a big lead in the polls, has been able to largely disregard his rivals for the GOP nomination. Trump is campaigning in Iowa, which holds his caucuses in 10 days. Willie James Inman, CBS News, the White House.
Trump is rallying in Sioux City, Iowa tonight, with another rally in Newton, Iowa tomorrow. Well, as mentioned, tomorrow does mark the third anniversary of the January 6th Capitol attack. On that day, President Trump delivered a speech and urged his followers to march to the Capitol and, quote, fight like hell to stop lawmakers and Vice President Mike Pence from certifying the 2020 election results, which he lost to President Joe Biden. Thousands of people proceeded to breach the Capitol building afterwards. 5 deaths were blamed on the chaos. New York's Attorney General has informed the state Supreme Court how she wants former President Trump to be punished in his civil fraud case. New York Attorney General Letitia James has filed a post-trial motion in the civil fraud trial against Trump. In it, she asked Judge Arthur Engoron to fine Trump $370 million and ban him from doing real estate business in New York for life. The filing also says the AG wants 5-year bans for Trump's 2 eldest sons, Don Jr. and Eric Trump. One of former President Trump's co-defendants in the Georgia election subversion case wants the trial moved to a Republican-leaning county. Harrison Floyd filed for a change of venue today. Floyd argues he cannot get a fair and impartial jury in Fulton County, which is largely urban and leans Democrat. He wants the trial moved to rural Coffee County, which is predominantly Republican and was also the site of reported election interference by Trump operatives. It is a shocking courtroom video out of Nevada. A judge was attacked during a sentencing hearing Wednesday. That video may have you asking, what's done to protect judges in Kentucky courtrooms? Jessica Umbro talked to a couple of judges in our area.
I feel like I should be given a shot.
Just minutes after defendant Deobra Redden was denied probation at his sentencing for charges of attempted battery with substantial bodily harm. Judge Mary Kay Holtis was on the defensive.
You never know what's going to happen. We got people going to jail for sometimes, life for, 20, 30, 40 years. So it's always a dangerous situation.
The unpredictable nature of the courtroom is felt across the Commonwealth.
There's that rare occasion where they become so emotionally charged you don't know how they're going to react.
Judge Bunnell tells me that while she feels safe in the courtroom here in Fayette County, there are typically multiple bailiffs who assist with security. But for smaller, more rural counties, sometimes there is just one bailiff that assists with security in the courtroom.
I feel very secure in believing that there are no weapons in my courtroom. And that's very comforting. There's also an emergency button that we can push so that if we push that button, we know that there's more help coming pretty quickly.
The video out of Nevada, which has spread nationwide, serving as a reminder that courtroom peace can turn to courtroom chaos in a second's notice.
Anybody we deal with a lot of people who are under influence of drugs, and you just never know. It could turn at any moment in the courtroom.
In Lexington, Jessica Umbro, WKYT.
In the Nevada case, Redden now faces 7 counts of battery of a protected person and battery. The judge was shaken up with a few bruises but is okay. The court marshal was taken to the hospital for a head injury, and a law clerk also was taken to the hospital with a hand abrasion.
Well, we are dry and comfortable this evening, but we are tracking a winter weather advisory for areas along and north of I-64 for Rowan County, also for Elliott County. For most of us, no big issues with this weekend system, but possibly a little bit of a coating or a dusting or a few slick spots along and north of Interstate 64 as we go into tomorrow. So we will keep a close eye on this camera as we go into tomorrow. That current temperature in Rowan County at 39 degrees. For most of us, we see some middle to lower 40s and a few upper 30s in the Big Sandy Valley, down to 37 for Pikeville, 35 in Grundy, 45 in Manchester, and 42 over in Harlan at this hour. So not too bad as we go into this evening. But as we zoom out, we are tracking our next weather system. All this moisture over western Tennessee, also western Kentucky into Missouri and Arkansas. That will continue pushing off into our direction. So a cold rain is on tap for most of us, but possibly a little bit of wintry mix as well. Those temperatures are close to freezing in the middle to upper 30s as we wake up tomorrow morning. And again, most of us, no big issues with this system, but the forecast remains busy on Sunday, also for much of next week. Those details coming up in just a few minutes. Steve?
Cameron, thank you. Today marks 1 year since a 6-year-old student shot a teacher in a classroom in Virginia. Abby's Werner was struck by a bullet which ended up hitting her hand and punctured her lung. She says while the last 12 months have been physically and emotionally challenging, she has also recalled moments of joy from friends and family that have contacted her. Werner no longer works for the Newport News Public School District and has no plans to teach again. The National Rifle Association of America has announced Executive Vice President Wayne LaPierre is resigning as the group's leader effective January 31st. NRA Executive Andrew Arulanandam will be the interim CEO and Executive Vice President. In a statement released by the NRA, LaPierre said he is proud of his work with the organization. He's been with that organization for many years. This comes just days before his civil trial is set in a corruption case in New York State. House Majority Leader Steve Scalise is having a stem cell transplant. It's part of his battle against blood cancer. Scalise first announced his diagnosis back in April. He completed chemotherapy last month, and the next step is his treatment in a stem cell transplant. Scalise expects to return to Washington next month and will work remotely until then. Attorney General Merrick Garland says the FBI has stopped more than 500 illegal firearms sales to people under 21 years old. That's since Congress approved enhanced background checks. The enhanced checks are part of the bipartisan Safer Communities Act implemented in October 2022. It includes things like outreach to state or local officials who may have access to disqualifying information about firearms buyers that federal officials otherwise would not have known.
Today we are announcing that in the 19 months since the Act's passage, those checks have already kept 527 firearms out of the hands of young people who are prohibited from having them.
The DOJ says the FBI has used enhanced checks on more than 200,000 gun purchases, including the 527 people who were younger than 21. The DOJ says those checks have kept more than 1,900 guns away from dangerous and prohibited people. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30, the Biden administration closed out 2023 with some good economic news.
Plus, a mixed bag of weather is on the way for this weekend. Those details coming up.